Okay, so how the eviction moratorium affects you. So this is something that a lot of people are worried about. We're on September 29th today, so we have the first day of the month coming up this week. I know a lot of investors are very concerned, so I thought we would talk about it and maybe dialogue about it a bit and see if we can assuage some fears and make a plan. So this is, I mean, what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, I don't know where you've been. I think everybody's pretty much aware of the Centers for Disease Control eviction moratorium that's going on. It lasts through the end of the year. And then any tenant who meets these requirements is eligible. So some of the prior restrictions on evictions had, like the house had to be under a federally backed loan or something like that. This is everything. Basically, this is everything except hotels. Any kind of long-term rental of any unit whatsoever. Residential falls under this. And so the tenant needs to meet these requirements. And I put in parentheses or say that they do. Nobody is really, there's no burden of proof. There is no other paperwork whatsoever other than signing your name at the bottom of a declaration saying these apply to me. So you can look through these. Obtaining rental assistance, so they have to promise that they've tried, basically that they are under 99,000 in income, and then a couple of other factors, and just basically that if you evict them, they would be homeless, and they just have to swear to that to be eligible. The one good thing about this order is that, I've heard like there's no evictions until December 31st, but that's not technically true. There can be evictions still. There can still be evictions based on reasons that are not just late payment of rent. So if you have a tenant that's just terrible, that's tearing up your property or causing problems, if criminal activity, anything like that, they can still be evicted. Like you can still use that as grounds because, that's not a COVID related thing. That's, you need to get them out of your house, right? So, um, just make sure if they haven't paid rent, that none of these apply. I mean, these are pretty, pretty significant factors. So, criminal activity is pretty high bar. But just so you know, you still can do an eviction for these reasons. The tenant, all they have to do is I linked to the declaration. All they have to do is fill out that declaration and basically sign it at the bottom. It says several times that, you would be under perjury if you lie. It tries to kind of, I guess, threaten the tenant a little bit that, hey, we really mean it. You have to meet those qualifications. So I guess that's good. And then I found this interesting that the Texas Supreme Court came out with a ruling to try to clarify the order because I think all of us know it's super unclear. It's extremely vague language throughout. But one of the things that they did was make it to where the tenants have to be aware about this possibility to stop their eviction because it's not an automatic thing. The eviction court isn't automatically going to say like, oh, evictions have halted. That's not exactly what it is. The tenant has to fill out this form to get that. And so, I guess at first, maybe tenants weren't aware of that fact. And so Texas Supreme Court wanted to make it clear to everyone. So as a landlord, you need to provide this information to the tenants. At the moment that they say, they can't afford rent and you're starting to talk about evictions or what you're going to do, you need to provide this. And give them some guidance on what it means, what it doesn't mean. But you have to provide the form itself to everyone. So make sure you do that so that you follow the law. Um, and then, of course, if someone fills out a declaration, they turn this into the landlord. They don't, it's not turned into the government or something, it's actually turned into you. And so if you receive this declaration, just know that you need to stop the eviction proceedings. And, so you don't want to end up in, facing fines or legal proceedings. You can challenge the declaration. So if you suspect that the tenant is lying and that they are making money or something like that, you can challenge it. I was reading in one article that said that the person had witnessed 60 proceedings where a landlord challenged it, and only one where the judge ruled in the favor of the landlord. So it seems as though judges are going to be pretty lenient with tenants on this issue. And so, if you're going to challenge it, you're going to have a really good reason to do that. Because I imagine, then you're going to have legal fees and everything. So make sure you have a really good reason. Okay, so the rent is not canceled. Tenants still have to pay the rent. They still have to pay every month that they owed. On December 31st, they still owe all of that. So, this isn't just get out of rent free time. You need to make sure that if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I'm not going to pay rent because I don't have to pay rent right now. Like there's a form, you need to make sure that they realize like, well, okay, you don't have to pay rent now, but eventually you're going to have to pay all of the rent you missed. Plus you can find late fees, whatever's in your lease. So, that's just a big thing to put out there, maybe proactively. If you're letting your tenants know about this, maybe just try to do it in a non jerk landlord way, but just kind of let them know like, hey, you're still going to have a really big bill. So let's try to find a way to get this done. Okay. So if the tenant can't pay the rent, and we'll have some discussion about this afterwards, about some different ideas, and we'll kind of brainstorm what to do. But the first one is calm down. Getting angry at the tenant or at the government or at the judge, getting angry isn't going to help anything. So just take a step back, especially when they tell you like, don't turn it into a confrontation. Just, collect yourself. Then have a conversation. So, like we've said last week, I think most tenants are great people. Like most tenants are just trying to live their lives and pay their rent and live. Um, so while it seems like, I guess we'll start to see in the next couple of months, but while it seems like everybody might take advantage of this, I think for the most part, people are trying to do their best. And so talk with them. Stephen Covey 101, like seek to understand first, try to figure out what's going on, see where they're at and what's reasonable to expect out of them. And so, and because sometimes it's just so different for every tenant, like the solution is not going to be this one size fits all. Like, oh, if they can't pay the rent, if A, then B. There's not that. Every situation is a little bit different. And so, just having a good conversation with them can help you figure that out. Figuring out, do you have a job? Do you expect to get a job? Do you, have somebody who could loan you something for a little while? Just try to see what tools they have at their disposal, and try to work with them as much as possible. Again, step 3, remind them that this rent is eventually going to be due. And then if they don't pay, the amount that is due is just going to go up because of the late fees. And, that first qualification for the declaration is that the tenant has tried to get rental assistance. So you may even proactively, actually I think tomorrow I'm going to spend some time making a list of resources for our tenants, and say like, hey, don't give me this declaration until you've tried, checked off this list. You've tried these places, um, and try to give. There's so many resources here in San Antonio. There's the Salvation Army does rental assistance. SAM Ministries gives assistance, and then the government has a pretty good program. So try that first, because you never know. We've had tenants that got 3 months assistance pretty easily. So just do that first. That way, because that's the easiest for everybody. And then step 5, get creative. Like I said, every situation is so different. It's going to be, whatever, do they get paid weekly? Maybe they can give you a little bit per week. Um, I've even thought like, well, okay, if they can't pay the whole thing, but they can pay most of it, maybe I accept that as the full rent and just be done with it. Because I mean, I'd rather get $1,000 rent than zero, even if I'm supposed to get 1,500. Like maybe giving them some options like, okay, I won't charge you any late fees if you pay something, each Friday, or just whatever seems like it might help. Um, and again, it has to come off as you're trying to help. We're trying to come up with a solution. We're trying to work together. I really, really, really hate the kind of stereotype of like landlord and tenant are automatically enemies. I mean, it's so rampant, and I mean, there are so many terrible landlords that it's totally justified, and there's so many terrible tenants that it's justified. But we should try to be the exception to that and say, basically, just be on your tenant's side. I mean, that's your customer. Like, serve them. Say, okay, how can we come to a solution together? Because that's going to get you further than trying to be aggressive. Right now, the law is not on your side. Like right now, they have the leverage. Okay. And so just realize that right off the bat. I need to um, be as nice as I can and as understanding as I can. And that's going to be the best way to solve this. But just make sure you keep in mind that it's all about serving, it's all about everybody just doing the best they can to get through this, right? And then step 6 is again, remain calm and make sure you don't break the law. So don't do anything stupid like lock them out of their house or turn off utilities or anything like that. There is, it is possible that if somebody's behind on rent, that you don't need to make repairs. So, like, that is possible. I wouldn't really stretch that too far. But it is a way that you can, I guess, if you find a way to mention that in a nice way, maybe like, I won't have the money to make repairs, or something like that. That's something. But I didn't even include it here because it's just one of those things. Like, that's again going back to that like fighting mentality, and they want to keep it as much as possible cooperative. And then I love stoicism, as you guys know, and so I put this quote. I really like the practice of fear setting. And I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. I heard about it on a Tim Ferriss episode, and then I kind of dove in. But it's a stoic practice of basically like going through a mental exercise of what's the worst that can happen. Okay. And actually seeing that out to the end. So, like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? The tenant refuses to pay rent. Okay. And then I can't kick them out. And then, and like take that to December 31st. Okay. And in this case, the worst that could happen, is that you are out several months of rent, and maybe you end up having to sell the home because you don't have the cash funds to hold it. It's been a good market. Like, you should be able to sell your home pretty quickly and easily. So there's always a solution. And if you do that exercise of fear setting and just take it out to what's the worst thing that can happen, um, I use it all the time because the answer is almost always like, well, I wouldn't die. Like, I'm not going to die. Nobody close to me is going to die. We'll get through it. We'll find a solution and it'll be okay in the end. And for me, that really, really helps to just um, kind of bring down my anxiety. And if I start worrying about things, I'm like, you know what? It's going to be okay in the end. And I think we were talking about last week when Aaron presented that real estate is such a long term game. Like years down the road, a few missed rent payments, like, okay, it's fine. You still have this asset. You still have this, your wealth is still increasing over time because of this home. So just try to keep calm and stay in your right frame of mind, because that's when people get in trouble, is when they get angry and start becoming start threatening and things like that. And that would just be a really stupid approach to take in this environment.